these are to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. And we got another interesting topic because the 49ers made a move.
They did.
But didn't make another move, a corresponding move after that.
That's
They just have
weird.
an open spot. Who is going to be the new 90th guy? Because right now we only have 89, Alex.
Nobody. That was the episode. Great talking. No. Look, it could be a lot of different folks. It could be a lot of different guys. We're going to get into some of these names. We're going to talk about some of these guys, so make sure you hit that like button right now if you enjoyed just the topic and are excited about what we got coming your way today. And make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Ant, who's the first guy kind of on your list that you think the 49ers could actually be going after and targeting? Not just some N'Keal Harry name they're going to trade out there, right, that we just talked about. Who is an actual target that you think the 49ers could be going after or looking for? Because typically in the past, right, you cut a defensive guy, go with a defensive guy. Is there a name out there?
Yeah, the first thing that came into my mind is we just cut a linebacker. So they've decided that they are going to bring on another linebacker. And the first linebacker that popped into my head was Quan Alexander. Because Quan Alexander's been recovering from his Achilles injury. The 49ers are already paying him $4+ million. Why not pay him an extra $1.5 million and get him out there on the veteran minimum and let this guy help your team? You're going to have him on the roster and have him in games for 20% of the time. He's an improvement over Aziz. He really is. I mean, he's still a better player than Aziz, and I think he brings an intangible to the 49ers defense that was missing last year, especially halfway through the year, was the energy. When he's on the field, the energy goes to an all-time level. Everyone gets hyped up. The hot boys thing is real. I think Fred brought it last year, but I think that he puts Fred kind of in another level because he's a hype man. He's exciting. He gets everyone going, and that is an intangible that you need on a football team. People feed off of it. And so I think you get him out there and you let him run around, and knowing that his role isn't going to be real big, his cap number is not going to be real big, it just makes a lot of sense to me. You cut one linebacker, you get a linebacker that's better than the one you cut. 100% you improve your team. I like it.
I agree with you there. I think it makes the most sense of all the names that you could potentially talk about, of all the guys you could bring in to go out and add another linebacker name. Makes sense. But there's another pretty gosh darn solid linebacker out there floating around in free agency that there's been no rumblings about. Kind of been flying under the radar. No one's really been saying his name or bringing him up. KJ Wright.
Yeah.
He is entirely a possibility. This is a guy who's played in the NFC West. It's definitely a guy they would want to bring in just for intel on the Seahawks, because you know how the Niners and the Seahawks roll. Signing and swooping up guys from their opponent to get them in, bring them in, get them into their system. For some reason, every time this happens, they end up doing pretty well for each other's teams. They add a little piece. And KJ Wright by no means is a slouch.
No.
Right? He is not a slouch. The problem there is how much money is this guy still going to command? Because he is not by any means a terrible linebacking core. And this is a guy who, if they signed and brought in, you would be thinking now that maybe the Niners are in fact thinking about going to a more base down 3 linebacker set for majority of the time, because they're not going to want to take Dre Greenlaw off the field on pass downs. So this is a guy you're coming in and bringing in for potentially for 2 to 3 downs a drive, especially if it's third and shorts and things of that nature where you don't think a team's going to pass or they got multiple tight end sets on the field. Problem is, in the NFC West, doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, it doesn't.
But this is still a possibility for San Francisco.
It is. And the fact that early on in free agency, somebody on Twitter told him, just don't go to the 49ers. And he was like, what? What's wrong with them? I don't mind. So KJ Wright is open to all things. And coming to the 49ers would make sense. He fits in the system 100%. We know that he runs the system, so he could do this in his sleep. He is an improvement over Aziz, which, like we've talked about before, if you're going to improve a position by bringing in a player, you do it. But you're right. The compensation is the key. How much is it going to cost to bring him in? The fact he's still out there means he's not getting the number that he wants to get. So closer to training camp, this would make more sense, because then he knows he's not going to get his number. He's like, you know what? I need to lock onto a roster. I need to lock onto a roster where I can win, where I can show my skills, and where I can be successful, so that way next year I have a chance to go capitalize on it. So 49ers are in the hunt, but I would say Seattle also is too, because the familiarity with what they do and just being comfortable with the city, the town, the team, everything like that.
The running mate also.
Yeah, 100%.
The fact that you've been playing with Wagner for the entirety of your tenure there in Seattle, it bodes. If he's going to take less to play somewhere, it would make more sense for him to stick with where he's been because he knows what he can already do in that system. Whereas when you come to San Francisco, listen, it's a similar system, right? You got similar type linebackers and players, and I would say probably better linebackers right now than what he's had there. But that also means potentially less opportunities for him to shine and less opportunities for him to get that bigger contract.
True. And another guy that has kind of did the whole Seattle 49ers thing is Richard Sherman.
It's true.
And he could be an option as well. Maybe the 49ers cut a linebacker. Maybe they have some plans for a safety to kind of fill that last linebacker spot. They're only going to keep 4 linebackers. And then I know they got Burgess as another linebacker that's also interesting for them, but maybe they were going to slide one of those guys in there. They have safeties they need to keep. Richard Sherman is somebody that they definitely could add. He could play corner. We've talked about this, though, him actually filling the 5th corner role.
Sure.
And Dante Johnson being gone as far as the slot, not actually being the 5th corner, but that slot, and then playing safety as well, and you just have that flexibility. So he's still an option as well. You're getting to the time where Richard Sherman signing makes sense. I'm sure they're coming to an idea of what Fred Warner wants money-wise. Mm-hmm. So that is why now it makes sense for them to be able to bring in another player. So we're getting to that time now where that guy makes sense. KJ Wright, those guys are going to start making sense the closer we get to training camp. So Sherman's a possibility.
100%. And I think both of us agree that this 90th man is going to get decided before we get there.
Yeah.
This isn't a thing where they're going to roll into training camp and then bring a guy in to try and fill that spot. This spot's getting filled now, which is why we're not going to talk about the Melvin Ingrams in the world and the Justin Houstons, because at the end of the day, those guys are probably going to wait till training camp starts and teams are in and they know what teams need what, so that way they can go to the best situation for them to win, shine, and get the most money they possibly can on a 1-year deal, because they're going to want to still try and get paid in the future here, and they know next year the salary cap's bumping up, so they're going to have an opportunity to do that, but they need to find themselves a place for 1 year where they can still stand out and still shine, put up big gaudy numbers so they can get that big fat paycheck, hopefully one more time next season. Those names aren't going to be signed before we get to the 31st of July.
I don't think so either. I think those guys are waiting. They're waiting for a potential D Ford coming in and not being healthy, or for some of these, Nick Bosa not being able to go early on. Those would be situations where the 49ers would need to reach out and grab an edge rusher. They could put the 49ers over a barrel and get them for whatever they can. And then the 49ers would have to, make a move as far as, restructuring some deals and then bring one of them in. So they're going to wait. It's no different than what Clowney and some of those guys were doing last year. You make teams wait, and then you pounce when you have an opportunity. These guys will have an opportunity when we get into training camp, but that is not now.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's other options. As far as the defensive side of the ball,
yes,
I don't know if there's another option for the 49ers. There's always options everywhere. But to me, that usually when you get rid of a defensive player, you add a defensive player. It's not 100%. So it is interesting to see. Is there anyone else you think the 49ers could actually target? And is there anyone on the offensive side of the ball?
There is a possible trade target.
Ooh.
The question is, do they actually know the number that they're going to be paying Warner? And then do they have the plan in place to free up the money to do this? Because this person is going to cost you something. That would be Stephon Gilmore.
Okay.
If the idea is that you freed up the Nathan Gerry slot, you just didn't see what you needed to see out of him, and you know what? They were all sitting there going, all right, listen, Fred's going to want about this much money. We can restructure these 2 guys, and we can go make this move for Stephon Gilmore, eat that contract this year, and try and extend him so we have him and Verrett locked up for the future. That is 100% a possibility. How likely? I don't know. I don't know how likely it is.
Yeah.
This doesn't feel like a move where Nathan Gerry getting cut doesn't feel like a move to go make a trade for a big player. It feels like a move that is made right now, right before training camp, to go, 1, give Nathan Gerry an opportunity to get himself fully healthy and go make a play or run for another team for the training camp and for preseason, and 2, for them to go out and bring in another veteran presence that they're a little more comfortable and more familiar with, which is why the names that we've already talked about make the most sense.
Yeah, I think in a perfect world, you'd want to bring in Stephon Gilmore.
100%.
I mean, he's still 31 years old and still one of the best players in the league.
And stayed fairly healthy.
How much? I know he wants a new contract, and New England is not going to want to lose him in the off season for nothing. So
that's not the Belichick way.
No, so definitely moving him would have been a possibility. I think they wanted to move him last year. Probably didn't have the opportunity because he got hurt. What will they do now? I don't know. I don't know if the 49ers have the firepower to go get him, the money to go get him. What will it cost? Or is Bill just going to call San Francisco like he does and give them a bargain? Because
he wants to fund?
For some reason, Bill has the feeling that if he can't win the Super Bowl, he'd like the 49ers to. And I'm okay with that.
We appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a thing where he's just a Tom Brady thing. I don't know.
Maybe.
But Gilmore 100% would lock down that side. If they made this move and the corresponding move was to bring in Stephon Gilmore, I would be 100% behind that. I think a more likely move is the ones we talked about before. But I do like that you put that out there as a possibility because, I mean, it's at least an interesting, possibility that could happen theoretically. I think it's a little out there, but you always want to talk about those things because I think these front office guys still sit in the offices and talk about situations and possibilities that could happen.
If you don't think they're still talking about potential ways to, mess with the Packers and, call them up about Rodgers, even though there's probably no chance of that ever happening in a million years, they're sitting around talking about it.
Yeah.
That's their job. In the front office, your job is to find ways to take this team from where it is and take it to a whole other level. So there's names that we're not even talking about right now that the 49ers are probably looking into as options. Are they likely? No. But that's what they get paid to do, right? They're paid to take a look at the league, look at rosters, projections, where teams are potentially going, right? In terms of salary cap space, who they're going to have to sign, and reach out and see, hey, how warm is the water over here? Is this even possible? If I dip my toe in, is it freezing cold or is it a little warm over here and starting to bubble a little bit? Maybe there's something here. I don't know, but they're looking into those types of things constantly. They have the whole reason for all this analytic boom in the NFL is for this exact reason. So you can try and go after and target players who are potentially on the uptick or starting to peak in their careers, but a team is running out of, in terms of cap space, the ability to pay these guys long-term down the line. And maybe they know, hey, we need to get off this guy a little bit earlier rather than later.
Could it also be a salary cap move? I mean, yes, Nathan Gerry was not making that much money, but could they move from him, bring in a rookie, for instance, or, already have, maybe they're just going to sign an undrafted player, but they already had an idea that Justin Hilliard or one of these guys can make the roster. You can save the money, whether it's $750,000 or whatever it is, save that money, and then you have it to use. You still got to sign your rookies and stuff, so maybe that's a possibility. Another option, like we've thrown around for a while, is maybe they only plan on keeping 4 linebackers. If they only keep 4 linebackers and they keep 5 safeties, then there was no need to have Nathan Gerry because you think that Flanagan Foles can be the 4th linebacker and you can slide in one of these other safeties as your 5th linebacker per se.
And now you can also go after another position of need, whether that's tight end, right? Whether that's O-line depth, adding some more there. Maybe it's another running back. Who knows? The Niners could... In all honesty, I don't think there's really a position of significant weakness right now that they haven't already tried to address. At this point, maybe Shanahan is just like, screw it, get rid of them. We're not going to keep them. We're only going to go with 4, and let's bring in another toy.
Something that just popped into my head.
I like it.
Last week, I saw that Delaney Walker's talking about he knows he's going to land somewhere. What if they freed up the spot for Delaney Walker to come in and compete, and they decided that the best option was to not get rid of one of the tight ends they have, but to bring in Delaney Walker, and maybe that he will eventually be the 90th man.
You heard it here first, folks. Maybe Delaney Walker is, in fact, man number 90 for this 2021 squad heading into training camp. And you may have just struck gold there, my guy.
Who knows?
It very well could be. Look, listen, half the fun with all of this and training camp and leading up into preseason is the speculation.
It is.
Speculating on what this team is doing, speculating on what they could do. And we try and do as much speculation as we can without being too crazy and too outlandish here on the 49ers Cutback. So, I mean, I feel like we did the 90th man some service and gave you some pretty decent options and a few outlandish ones as well.
Well, I think there's room for all kinds of conversation.
It's true.
That's one of the aspects of the 49ers is we want to touch on everything, not just scheme, not just what they're doing on the field, but also the front office and what they're doing off the field and the things that they have to do to construct this 49ers roster. The blueprint is real. Putting together the best, possible 90-man roster that eventually turns into the best 53-man roster is what you're looking to do. And we have to talk about it. It wouldn't be fun if we weren't. I don't like having speculative conversations all the time, but sometimes it's fun to do.
100%. And it's about what it is, right? What we're talking about. We're just out there throwing shade, speculating shade, and making up rumors and stuff. Then it's just kind of ridiculous nonsense and doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And it feels like we have nothing to talk about. But in this case, We
Yeah.
legitimately do, because this roster spot exists.
Yeah.
It's a real roster spot, and they're going to fill it.
And it's a real question because normally the corresponding move happens within like 24 to 72 hours. You cut someone because you have someone in mind to bring in,
or you've already you've already drawn up the paperwork for the guy.
Yeah,
and you're like, hey, by the way, we got to get rid of somebody. And they're like, oh Jesus, bye.
Yeah, that's usually what happens. So it's not normal for a team like the 49ers to not have a full 90-man roster pretty much all the time.
Well, this is what happens when Kyle Shanahan goes to California Adventure, and he's just chilling and hanging out and having a good time, throwing footballs into fire pizza ovens across the street. He's having a good time. He's dragging a little bit. He's enjoying his offseason. You know what? Kudos. It's a Kyle Shanahan summer. He's been killing it this summer. I love all the content he's been putting out. Especially liked him at California Adventure, sipping on a beer, hanging out with some 49ers fans. I was really cool to see. Kyle, I wish he had been there like a week earlier when I was there, and then it would have been even better, because then we'd have extra content for the Cutback crew.
It's true.
But you're forgiven. Just bring home a Super Bowl.
That's all he has to do is bring home a Super Bowl.
Forgiven. All will be forgotten.
Well, he's gonna make it so it's gonna be done.
I love to see it. You'll love to see it. Let us know what you think about the 90th man down below in the comment section right now. Do you agree with us? The names that we listed, spot on, those are who it's going to be? Or did we drop the ball completely? We missed a whole list and a whole host of players. And if we did, let us know down there in the comment section. And while you're down there, don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell if you haven't already. And most importantly, share the video with the rest of the Cutback crew. Let's keep growing this great, great, great community.
Yeah, let's see who you think they should bring in. Who is going to be this 90th man? What ideas do you have? That's what I'm curious to find out. Because usually the Cutback crew comes through with some great, people, some great comments, some great questions. Let's have a real conversation about this and discuss it. 49ers need to fill the roster spot. It's going to be somebody. This is an actual thing. But who's it going to be? That's the good question. We brought up some good ones. Are we right? Are we wrong? Who knows? The key is, though, that we have a good conversation about it. And when it happens, we get to have another conversation.
And maybe celebrate, too. Who knows? Because it depends on the guy. Maybe it's a big celebration. It's a big name. The Neil's moving all over the place. Or it's just a guy and we're like, okay, it is what it is. Look. We're just fans, right? All of us. We're fans. We're giving you here our analysis, giving you everything that we can. The hardest part of our job is just trying to predict and guess what this 49ers team is doing, right? The easiest part for you as a fan, you don't have to worry about all that. What you have to worry about, though? Going to the merch store, copping yourself some nice merch. Add to that wardrobe so you have extra clothes to wear, and you can rep the 49ers Cutback crew all the time, whether it's our TCC-inspired shirts, whether it's our block, run, catch, fear nothing, George Kittle inspired shirts. We got everything for all of you, and we got new stuff coming out all the time. Just be a part of this great community. You're going to want to be a part of all this, cop all that great merch, support us down below, share that video, and I'll tell you what, Ant, training camp cannot get here fast enough.
Yep.
We got like a few weeks, and it just needs to happen.
Yep, get here really quick training camp. Get here really quick preseason. I'm ready to get into this. I'm ready to start breaking down games and film and see these players play well so we can break it down and have some real conversations about who's going to make this roster, how this roster is going to be constructed, and how the 49ers are going to go in there and take care of business during the season. We're on our way back to cause some major problems for everyone else. Can't wait for any of it.
The quest for 6 cannot start soon enough. Let's get here. Let's get this going. But until next time, 49ers fans, you stay safe.
And remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.